While Umaro is probably not one of the most popular characters in Final Fantasy VI, he does earn the first distinction of being the first playable monster in the series, in the main series, actually. Although, if we include spin-offs and whatnot, that would be also counting that as well. Technically, Final Fantasy VI set up a lot of firsts in the series. We got our first playable Moogle in the form of Mog, and of course, we got our first playable monster in the form of our Yeti friend here, Umaro. Of course, if you were to look back at Square Enix's history before Final Fantasy, King's Knight actually had the first playable monster in the form of Barbarossa, the monster from that game. So this isn't the first time that Square Enix has actually made monsters playable for the first time, that is. And technically, Umaro definitely does take an interesting take on the berserker job that was introduced in Final Fantasy V, and he's actually the only major playable character in the entire game that's actually a berserker by nature. So anyway, I'm RunnerStorm331. I hope everyone's having a great day this Friday as we get ready to close for the weekend. And today we're going to be covering Umaro as our third character to cover the Final Fantasy VI character guides that I'll be doing. And these guides are meant to help beginners get into Final Fantasy VI. So there's probably other guides out on YouTube or GameFAQs.com or other areas that could probably do a way better job than I could at explaining things and describe things in more better detail. But this guide's mostly there to add my knowledge to the already grown pool, as well as to help players that want to get into this game and learn the ins and outs of the characters they're going to be using. So we're going to be covering Umaro today, and we're going to be covering an overview of him, as well as his strengths, weaknesses, the best relics he can equip, and the abilities he gets to use when he's under berserk status. Well, I shouldn't say berserk status, but what he does when he has certain relics equipped, that is. And without further ado, let's begin. So, despite Umaro being arguably the worst character by many people by far, even by myself, he's actually a pretty well-rounded character. Of course, his strength has been augmented through the Berserker Ring, which gives him a +5. So his actual starting stats are actually 50. He's actually got the best strength, stamina, defense, and magical defense in the entire game. Part of that's due to the snow scarf that he has equipped, of course. But overall, this gives him some pretty good options. He has 57 on strength, 33 on speed, 46 on stamina, 37 on magic, which is very shocking for me. HP gain of 60 and MP gain of 0. Now, despite the fact he doesn't gain MP on level ups, he does get MP regardless. Even though he doesn't really use magic in the entire game, I guess they wanted to have him be able to use, indicate he was intended to use MP at some point, but they pretty much scrapped it ultimately. Of course, Umaro as well as Gogo are the only two party members in your entire game that you will not be able to equip Espers on through Magicite command, and unfortunately, he won't be able to boost up his stats as well. Another downside about Umaro is that he cannot equip any gear on him outside relics. As you can definitely see, everything on here has been grayed out, so his only known weapon and equipped armor are Bone Club and Snow Scarf. Snow Scarf is considerably one of the more powerful armors that you can get in the entire game. It also gives him the ability to absorb ice and have fire. Normally you would wager this in the Behemoth suits at the Dragonet Coliseum, and if you're successful at defeating the Outsider, you'll win these. And these are armors that can be equipped by Mog and Gao, which make them turn them both into defensive tanks. Umaro comes with one already equipped. Whereas the Bone Club only gives him an attack of 151, and that weapon cannot be removed, or you cannot equip him with another one. So unfortunately, you cannot equip him with helmets or even shields or even other weapons, but he can equip other relics. In this case, he can equip the Berserker Ring, which of course allows him to not only absorb fire, but negates lightning damage, which is actually good because this actually replaces the halves fire damage from Snow Scarf. And this also gives him the ability to negate lightning as well. This also gives Umaro another ability to use in combat in addition to another relic that we'll go over pretty quickly. I gotta find it first. Now, where art thou, Blizzard Orb? Oh, there it is. So Blizzard Orb gives Umaro a +5 on magic, but it also allows him to absorb ice damage and negate fire damage. And of course, when he equips that, he gains another ability as well, which we'll cover in a bit. Basically, this is kind of rather pointless in general, since Snowscarf also absorbs ice, but it also negates fire damage. Um, Technically, you would only equip this if you wanted Umaro to have more attack options, but technically I find Blizzard Orb kind of running interference with both Snowscarf and Berserker Ring in terms of the ability to either have or absorb fire, since this one negates fire damage. It would have been nice if he had the ability to negate water damage through this rather than negate fire. But unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. So one of the odd things about Umaro is that even though he's a Berserker and does mostly attacking, when he does attack, he does have like a number of options. Apparently, for anyone who's played Final Fantasy V, will remember the Berserker job in which the characters do nothing but attack. So for Umaro, who's also a Berserker, the developers decided to give him additional moves in addition to his normal attack. So the AI will go through which one of these through percentages based on his relics and whether or not he has them equipped. But before we go over those percentages, I do want to go over the abilities that he does get during combat. Slam, or also known as Body Blow, is one of the two attacks that Umaro gets access to immediately once you get him on board the party. So he does have a very low chance of triggering this even without relics equipped, about at least a 38% chance. Basically what he does is just rams right into the enemy for very high damage. This does have a battle power of 198 and ignores defense, and it's unblockable. So that's actually a pretty good attack to use for the most part. But you probably won't see that a whole lot since Umaro's going to be throwing regular attacks rather than slamming himself into enemies. But when it does, it hurts pretty badly. When Umaro has the Berserker Ring equipped, he gains another ability called Throw Ally. So basically what it does, it ignores defense damage. It ignores defense, and ironically when the damage is calculated, it takes into account the ally that he throws. So whatever equipment they have on them when he throws them, that's how much damage the enemy takes. So it doesn't apply to Umaro's overall damage. It actually applies to the allies, whatever equipment the ally has on them. So weapons, shields, helmets, armor, relics, those kind of get taken into account in regards to the damage. So the damage can either be high or low depending on the party member's equipment. So when Umaro has Blizzard Orb, he'll have access to Snowstorm. This allows him to. This is his only magic attack in the entire game he gets access to, which deals ice damage and has a spell power of 100. Of course, it doesn't take into account split damage, unfortunately. So unfortunately, it's not. It won't ignore that, of course. But this is actually a good ability to have if you're going up against monsters that are susceptible to ice, like Tyrannosauruses and Brachiosaurus in Dinosaur Forest on World of Ruin, or any enemies that are susceptible to ice. But just be wary about using this because Umaro might inadvertently heal enemies that are capable of absorbing ice, and you do not want that if that happens. So in regards to the percentages of what he gets to do with the attacks, depends whether or not you have one of the two relics equipped, have none of them on them, or both of them on them. So when Umaro does not have these relics equipped on him, he'll have a 62% chance of attacking enemies with regular attacks, and 38% to perform slam. With Berserker Ring equipped, the percentage drops down noticeably. He'll do regular attacks at 37%, slam at 25%, and throw ally at 38%. If he has Blizzard Orb equipped instead of Berserker Ring, what he has is he'll have 37% chance of attacking, 25% chance for slam, and 38% chance for snowstorm. So if Umaro has both of these relics equipped, as you see right here, his regular attack, slam, throw ally, and snowstorm are all at 25%. So he'll have 25% chance of triggering all of those four, and none of them get any higher priority. So basically, when you have either one of the two relics equipped, that move gets a higher priority over the regular attack, which is not far behind by at least 1% at least. But Slam gets regulated lower as you equip relics on him. But then again, those two throw allies kind of a busted move as well as Slam. So those are actually pretty good abilities. Blizzard Orb, it should only be used if you're going to be utilizing for ice damage, but it's not really very helpful. But it's ironically gives Umaro an additional 5 on magic, which unfortunately he won't get a whole lot of usage in. For versions that do have the Dragon's Den and Soul Shrine, you will get access to Bone Wrist, which will boost up most of his stats when he has them equipped, but it doesn't give him any brand new attacks, though. So unfortunately, one of the reasons why Umaro is considerably the worst character is because not only is he not uncontrollable, but in certain cases, bringing Umaro along can really ruin strategies. Notably, if you bring him to the Veld with you when you're doing Rage Ring with Gao, if he returns and Umaro gets a chance to attack, he's going to attack Gao and force him to leave the battlefield. And not only does that happen, he'll lose any of the rages he would have gained from the enemy formation we fought in that fight. So this actually makes him a pretty poor character to bring into the Veld. For boss fights, he could be either good or bad, depending on the bosses you fight. He's actually pretty terrible to bring for the fights with Chatternook and Raxol. Both of those bosses are pretty notable for having required strategies to use, and because you won't be able to control Umaro, he's going to continue attacking, which can be pretty dangerous in general. Especially since Chatternook's lady form allows him to pretty much inflict status elements and retaliate if any of the party members attack it, because the ultimate goal of fighting Chatternook is to destroy the demon form, not the lady form. Raxol, of course, forces your party members to attack themselves in order to force Raxol back out into the battlefield. This is only important if you're going for the guard bracelet, so if you're not going to use Vanish on the Soul Sabers. But he won't be able to attack any of your allies because he's going to be attacking the enemies. One interesting thing that I have looked up when studying on Umaro is that sometimes he'll do Slam while he's in Megatech armor. If you bring him as one of your party members to Science Dreamscape, he'll just randomly fire beams most of the time, or even Heal Force. But from what I read, he is capable of doing Slam or throw allies while on Megatech armor. I've yet to see that myself, but I might try that next time. Of course, he can also perform Slam and throw ally while either in Imp and Zombie form. Of course, when he's in Zombie form, he'll attack your allies instead with those moves. He can still do that while in Imp form. Now, of course, as an enemy, before Umaro could join you, you do need to have Mog rejoin your party in the World of Ruin back in Mogul Cave, and once that's done, just return to the airship, put him on your party, then go to the Yeti's Cave, which you can access by defeating Valgramanda, and the path to getting there will be open. Jump in there and you'll find your way to this area where I'm at, and you'll want to examine this bone carving right here, and get the Mega Morsor Magicite from there, and this will trigger a fight with Umaro/Yeti. And once you defeat him, as long as you have Mog on your team, talk to him, and Umaro will join your party right then thereafter. So Umaro doesn't really bring a whole lot to the table, even though he's not really one of the better party members, but at the same time, he's actually one of the more better candidates to utilize for the Dragonet Coliseum, because he doesn't have really a whole lot of offensive options or spells that the party would normally have when they're deployed to the Coliseum. So even with Rage Ring, Berserk Ring, and Blizzard Orb, this will give him some pretty good advantages against certain monsters. The ability to negate thunder damage is pretty nice, not to mention absorb fire from Berserk Ring, and the ability to absorb ice through Snow Scarf and Blizzard Orb. Those are actually pretty good options. But of course, you'll definitely want Umaro to be at a high level before you attempt those, especially if you're going up against monsters that are normally from Kefka's Tower, since they'll have a lot more HP than normal if you're doing this at a very low level. And of course, there are some fights where Umaro can really do shine, in regards. He can probably be useful against Hummelbot, Death Gaze, the 8 Dragons, and there are some dungeons where he can definitely thrive, like the Cave of the Veld. There's no real needed strategy to fight the King Behemoth, as well as all the monsters present there. And of course, Ancient Castle is also notable because a lot of enemies have very high magic defense, which means Umaro can definitely wreck those enemies as long as you're not fighting those that are capable of absorbing on ice with Snowstorm. But physical damage is going to be the way to go in that area, since a lot of monsters can take less damage from magic attacks. So that really makes Umaro pretty useful overall in some of those areas. But for boss fights and anything that requires strategizing or rage learning, he's probably definitely not going to be one of the better candidates to bring along. Another thing to be very wary is if you're going up against enemies that are known for counterattacking when being hit. That could be pretty bad if you're going up with Umaro, since all he'll do is attack, and that could trigger some pretty nasty counterattacks if you're not careful. So anyway, that concludes Umaro's guide for this guide. And hopefully this will give you some general ideas how to use this secret character. And even though he's not the best, it's definitely well worth noting that he's not really a terrible character. I mean, it's just as his berserker status pretty much prevents him from being usable, but that doesn't mean he's not exactly unusable. But anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this guide. If you do like the content that I'm putting out on stream and YouTube, please follow and sub to both my YouTube and Twitch channels. It'll definitely help this channel grow bit by bit. The next character I will probably focus on guide on is Terra, who's considered to be the main protagonist of Final Fantasy VI, even though this game doesn't really focus on one character in particularly, since it focuses just about on almost everyone. But anyway, that might not be happening tomorrow or during the weekend, because I won't know until my next work schedules become available. So once I have time to set up those guides and study up on Terra, I'll be putting out the next guide. And you all have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Saturday for Killer Instinct speedruns, and I'll see you all later. This is Rotor Storm 3.